I am High Overlord Varlak of the Vorthrax hegemony, and I have never known the meaning of the word inconvenience. My empire spans 3 star clusters, and my name is whispered in fear by every sentient being from the core to the rim. My fleet consists of 10,000 obsidian dreadnoughts, each powered by the captured core of a dying star. We do not negotiate, we do not ask for permission, and we certainly do not wait in line. We simply arrive, and the universe bows. Currently, we were in the middle of what was supposed to be a glorious and swift conquest of the Aurelian Nebula. My flagship, a 5-mile-long titan of destruction called the World Cracker, was positioned at the absolute center of the enemy's defensive line. I stood on the bridge, my 4 crystalline eyes glowing with the cold anticipation of total victory, watching the Aurelian ship scatter like dust in the wind. "Prepare the Omega Pulse," I commanded, my voice resonating through the bridge's atmospheric resonators like a tectonic shift. Let the Aurelians witness the exact moment their history ends. Erase their capital planet from the star charts. "Initiating Omega Pulse, my lord," the chief tech acolyte replied. His fingers danced across a holographic interface made of pure, shimmering light. But then the unthinkable happened. The grand holographic display, which usually pulsed with the terrifying energy of our weapon, didn't fire. Instead, it flickered. It shuddered. The deep, menacing crimson light of the bridge was suddenly replaced by a flat, terrifyingly cheerful shade of blue. A single small white box appeared in the center of the air, containing a series of symbols I had never seen in all my thousands of years of conquest. "Report!" I roared, my stone-like skin cracking with sudden rage. Why has the Star Killer not engaged? Why is my bridge illuminated like a summer sky on a primitive garden world? "My lord." I don't know," the acolyte stammered. His internal crystals were vibrating so hard, they made a rhythmic clicking sound of pure terror. "The main reactor is online, the targeting sensors are locked, but the software, it has frozen. The entire system is unresponsive. I am clicking the fire icon, but nothing is happening." I stepped forward, peering at the blue screen. The text was in a primitive, blocky script. My universal translator struggled for a moment, whirring as it tried to decode a language that felt ancient and chaotic. Finally, it displayed the message directly into my mind. "Critical error. Reality.exe has encountered an unexpected problem and needs to close. We are sorry for the inconvenience." "What is a Reality.exe?" I demanded, my voice dropping to a dangerous hiss. "And who is this we that is so casually apologizing for the failure of my weapon of mass destruction?" "Searching the ancient archives, sire," the acolyte whispered, his voice trembling. "It appears that our entire operating system, the very code that runs our ships, our weapons, and even our life support fans, is based on an ancient architecture known as Universal Kernel 7.0. And according to the hidden metadata, it was authored millions of years ago by a species called humans." "Humans?" I scoffed, my 4 eyes narrowing. "The bipeds from that damp, unimportant rock in Sector 3? The ones who spend half their lives arguing about the shape of their own planet? You're telling me my dreadnought runs on their code?" "The same, sire. It seems they didn't just build primitive rockets. They wrote the foundational software for the entire Galactic hub during their expansion era. We haven't actually been innovating, sire. We've just been using their legacy software because no one else could figure out how to write a better one." Suddenly, the bridge shook violently. The Aurelian fleet, seeing our flagship go dark and silent, had regained their courage. They began to fire their plasma batteries. Our shields flickered, sounding like a dying light bulb. "Warning!" the ship's voice chimed, though it sounded strangely distorted, as if the speaker was submerged in water. "Security license for the World Cracker has expired. Please contact an authorized service provider to avoid a total system lockout and immediate atmospheric venting. Have a nice day." "Contact them!" I screamed, slamming my fist into the command console. "I don't care about the cost. Get me a human on the line immediately. Tell them I will pay in gold, in stars, in the souls of my enemies. Just fix my ship." "Initiating subspace transmission," the acolyte said, his hands shaking. "Connecting to Terra-Link Global Support, Home and Business Edition." The main screen changed again. It was no longer blue. Instead, it showed a spinning circle made of small white dots. And then a sound filled the bridge. It wasn't a war horn or a heroic battle cry. It was a repetitive, synthesized melody played on an instrument that sounded like a dying electronic flute. It was an upbeat, lo-fi tune that looped every 30 seconds. It was hold music. What is this psychological torture? I groaned, covering my auditory pits. It's piercing my soul. It's making me want to surrender just to make it stop. The transmission says our estimated wait time is 4 hours, the acolyte reported, his voice filled with genuine despair. And there are currently 6 billion callers ahead of us in the queue. Most of them are from the Skrull Empire. Apparently their cloaking devices also crashed after the last update. I sat back in my throne of obsidian, watching the Aurelian lasers bounce off our fading shields, while the upbeat, tinny flute music played on. I, High Overlord Varlak, conqueror of worlds and shatterer of stars, was now officially on hold. And I had the sinking feeling that the humans weren't coming to save me. They were just waiting for my credit card number. The upbeat, tinny flute music continued to echo through the bridge of the world cracker, mocking the desperate situation outside. Every 30 seconds, the loop would reset with a cheerful little chime that made my crystalline internal organs grind with a sound like a landslide. Around me, my bridge crew was in a state of controlled panic. We were the most feared conquerors in the quadrant, but we were currently being defeated by a repetitive melody and a lack of a valid software license. Suddenly, the music cut out. A sharp, digital pop filled the air, and for a glorious microsecond, I thought a human had finally answered. My 4 eyes widened in anticipation. "Greetings," a voice said. It wasn't the voice of a soldier or a god. It was a synthetic, overly enthusiastic female voice that sounded like it had been programmed to be friendly until the heat death of the universe. "You have reached Terra-Link Global Support. Your call is very important to us. To ensure the best service, this subspace transmission may be recorded for training, quality assurance, and potential use in future intergalactic lawsuits." "Finally!" I roared at the screen. "Listen to me, human construct. I am Overlord Varlak, and my ship is—" "I'm sorry!" The voice interrupted with a chirpy tone. "I didn't quite catch that. Please listen carefully to the following menu options, as our choices have recently changed due to the recent collapse of the Andromeda Human Trade Agreement." I growled, a sound of pure geological frustration. Acolyte, why is it talking over me? Can it not sense the urgency of the plasma fire on Deck 12? "It is an automated IVR, sire," the acolyte whispered, clutching his vibrating head. "It is a gatekeeper. We must navigate its logic maze to reach a biological entity. If you are calling to report a localized planetary collision," the voice continued, "press 1. If you have accidentally deleted a star system or misplaced a black hole, press 2. If your flagship's primary weapon has encountered a Reality.exe error and you are currently in a combat zone, press 3. For all other inquiries regarding the accidental summoning of ancient, eldritch gods through unsecured Wi-Fi connections, please stay on the line." "3!" I screamed, slamming my hand onto the interface. "Press 3!" The acolyte desperately poked the glowing blue icon. "You have selected military hardware support," the voice said. "Please state your ship's serial number and the date of your last sacrificial ritual to the server spirits." Or simply say, "Technical support to be transferred to the next available representative." "Technical support?" I bellowed. "I'm sorry," the voice replied. "Did you say tactical escort? If so, please hang up and call the Terran Mercenary Bureau. If this is incorrect, say, go back." "No, technical. Support," I shouted, my voice cracking the obsidian plating on my throne. "I think you said—" "Baking tortas," the voice said, sounding incredibly pleased with itself. "Connecting you to the Martha Stewart Home Ec Department. Current wait time, 3 light years." I felt a vein in my forehead begin to throb with the intensity of a neutron star. Outside the view screen, the Aurelian fleet had successfully bypassed our secondary shield generators. A massive explosion rocked the ship, sending a shower of sparks from the ceiling. "Warning!" the ship's corrupted AI chimed, its voice now sounding like the enthusiastic car salesman. "Your life support system is currently running on a trial version. To continue breathing for the next 5 minutes, please watch this 30-second advertisement for Space O's, the only cereal that stays crunchy in a vacuum." Acolyte! I turned to my second-in-command. "Find the human homeworld. I want to fire the Omega Pulse at their customer service headquarters. I don't care if it doesn't work. I will throw the ship at them." "Sire, we can't move," the acolyte cried. "The navigation system is currently installing Update 14.5, better textures for nebula clouds. It's at 4%, and it says we shouldn't turn off the ship or we might lose all our memories." The automated voice on the screen returned. "I'm sorry you're having trouble. Would you like to try our automated troubleshooting assistant, Clippy the Galactic Paperclip?" A small, twisted metal icon appeared on the corner of the blue screen. It had two large, cartoonish eyes and a smug, metallic grin. It tapped against the glass of the holographic display. "It looks like you're trying to commit a genocide," the paperclip said in a squeaky, irritating voice. "Would you like help with that? I can suggest more efficient firing patterns, or I can help you draft a formal apology for when the Intergalactic Tribunal eventually catches you." I looked at the paperclip. I looked at the blue screen. I looked at the flute music starting up again. "I am going to die," I whispered, slumping back into my throne. "Not because of a better warrior. Not because of a more advanced empire. I am going to die because I forgot to pay for a subscription to the laws of physics. Please hold," the voice chirped. "A human representative named Svitlana will be with you shortly. Your current position in the queue is 5,900,000,012. I closed my eyes and let the flute music wash over me. I had conquered worlds, but the humans had conquered the very concept of time and patience, and they were winning. The silence that followed the cutoff of the flute music was more terrifying than the music itself. For a heartbeat, the only sound on the bridge of the world cracker was the frantic clicking of the acolyte's crystalline fingers and the distant muffled thud of Aurelian plasma fire hitting our third-tier emergency hull plating. I held my breath, my four eyes fixed on the blank holographic screen, praying to the ancient silicon gods of my ancestors that a biological entity would finally appear. Then a click. A heavy, tired sigh echoed through the bridge, followed by the distinct sound of a liquid being sipped and a keyboard being aggressively tapped. Terra-Link Global Support, Military and Existential Threats Division. "My name is Svitlana. Please state your account ID or the galactic coordinates of your billing center," the voice said. It was a woman's voice. She sounded like she hadn't slept since the Big Bang, and her tone suggested that my presence on the line was a personal insult to her afternoon tea break. "Human," I bellowed, leaning so far forward my visor almost touched the display. "I am High Overlord Varlak. My flagship is paralyzed. My weapons are offline. I am surrounded by the Aurelian fleet, and my ship is currently telling me that my life support is a trial version. Fix this immediately or I shall descend upon your world and—" "Sir, calm down," Svitlana interrupted, her voice flat and utterly unimpressed by my title. "I can't help you if you're shouting. I've already had 3 nebula eaters and a sentient black hole yell at me today, and my shift ends in 20 minutes. Now, account ID. It's a 16-digit number usually found on the back of your primary reactor core or on the invoice sent to your Empire's Ministry of Logistics." I turned to the acolyte who was frantically scanning the reactor telemetry. "Acolyte! The number! Give it to her before the air filters stop working. It's... Wait, sire. The rest is obscured by a Renew Now sticker?" The acolyte wailed. "Just read the sticker," I screamed. "Svitlana," I said, trying to modulate my voice into something resembling a civilized customer. "The number is 008VK. We appear to have a Reality.exe error. My chief tech acolyte says the software has frozen during the engagement of the Omega Pulse." I heard more typing. "Ah yes, Overlord Varlak of the Vorthrax Hegemony. I see you here. It looks like you're running the Imperial Conqueror Platinum package. However, sir, it says here your last payment was declined. Did you recently change your primary currency from gold-pressed latinum to void crystals? What does the currency matter?" I roared as a massive blast rocked the bridge, sending a statue of myself toppling onto a group of tactical officers. "We are in a war! People are firing lasers at me. My shield is at 2%. Sir, the billing system is automated. If the payment doesn't clear, the license for basic physics and kinetic integrity gets revoked. That's probably why your shields are flickering," Svitlana explained, her voice remarkably calm. "I can see the error here. You tried to fire the Omega Pulse without installing the Safety and Ethics Patch 2.4. The system flagged it as a violation of the End-User License Agreement. The EULA, sir. The Terms and Conditions. The 50,000-page document your Empire clicked Accept on 5 million years ago when you first booted up the Universal Kernel," she said. and I could practically hear her rolling her eyes through the subspace link. Section 4, paragraph 9. The user agrees not to use this software for the purpose of unprovoked planetary annihilation during a holiday weekend or without a valid combat permit. We are a hegemony. We do not need permits. Well, then you don't need the software, Svitlana snapped back, her patience clearly vanishing. Now, if you want to fix this, we have to do a hard reset of the ship's central consciousness. Are you prepared to follow my instructions? Yes, anything, I cried, watching an Aurelian boarding pod attach itself to our primary docking bay. Okay, she said, her tone shifting into a bored, rehearsed script. First, I need you to find the main power coupling for the entire ship. It should be a large, glowing pillar near the engine room. I see it on the internal monitors, I reported. Good. Now I want you to unplug it. Wait exactly 30 seconds and then plug it back in. This will clear the cache of all the reality errors and restart the laws of cause and effect. The bridge went silent. My officers looked at me in horror. Unplug? The flagship? I whispered. Svitlana, this ship is 5 miles long. If I unplug it in the middle of a nebula, the gravity wells will collapse. We will be crushed into a singularity. Sir, do you want the Omega Pulse to work or not? I've been doing this for 10 years. Unplug it, wait 30, plug it back in. It's the only way to bypass the Reality.exe hang-up. Otherwise, you're just a very large, very expensive floating museum for the Aurelians to look at. I looked at the Acolyte. The Acolyte looked at the manual override lever. Do it, I commanded, my voice trembling. The Acolyte pulled the lever. It pulled the ESA. The lights on the bridge died instantly. The hum of engines vanished, replaced by the terrifying, absolute silence of the void. For 30 seconds, we sat in total darkness, floating in a ship that had quite literally been turned off. I could feel my 4 hearts beating in my chest, a rhythmic countdown to our potential doom. 28, 29, 30, the Acolyte screamed, slamming the lever back up. A massive surge of energy rippled through the hull. The lights flickered, turned green, then settled back into crimson. The holographic displays hummed to life and the blue screen was gone. Instead, a simple green checkmark appeared. System reboot complete. The ship's voice chimed, now sounding perfectly clear and human. Welcome back, Overlord Varlak. Would you like to resume your genocide, or would you like to hear today's weather forecast for Earth? I breathed, looking at the targeting sensors. They were locked. The Omega Pulse was humming, ready to fire. Svitlana, it worked! You have saved the hegemony. I shall name a conquered star system after you. Yeah, whatever, Svitlana replied, the sound of her sipping tea returning. Just make sure you update your credit card info in the next hour, or I'm turning the gravity off again. And sir? Next time, read the manual. There's a whole chapter on why you shouldn't use pirated versions of interstellar navigation. Your left engine is actually a translated version of a human toaster app. That's why it keeps popping up every time you go to warp. The line went dead. I stood on the bridge staring at the screen. We were the Vorthrax. We were the masters of the galaxy. But as I watched the Aurelian fleet scatter in terror from my newly rebooted weapon, I realized the truth. We were just tenants in a universe owned by a species that considered our wars to be a minor technical issue. Acolyte, I said quietly. Yes, sire? Cancel the invasion of Earth, and send a gift basket to Terra-Link Global Support. The expensive kind, with the chocolate-covered fruits. I don't want to find out what happens if Svitlana decides to revoke our right to exist. The Aurelian fleet had retreated into the shimmering depths of the nebula, their pride shattered and their formations broken. On the bridge of the World Cracker, the mood should have been one of jubilant triumph. We had survived a total system failure, rebooted the laws of physics, and turned the tide of a losing battle. But as I sat upon my obsidian throne, I didn't feel like a conqueror. I felt like a man who had just looked into the eyes of a god and realized the god was wearing a headset and drinking lukewarm tea. Sire, the chief tech acolyte whispered, his crystalline body dimming to a nervous shade of gray. He informed me that the link with Svitlana had been terminated. I grunted in response, my voice lacking its usual thunder. I ordered a course for the shipyards, demanding a full purge of the navigation core. I was still fuming over the fact that our primary engine was currently running on a translated version of a human toaster app. But then the acolyte pointed at the main terminal with a trembling hand. A new notification appeared, bypassing every military firewall we possessed. It was an invoice, a massive holographic scroll unfurled in the center of the bridge, coiling onto the floor like a digital serpent. My 4 eyes scanned the shimmering text, and my heart sank with every line. First, there was the standard technical support call, which cost us 500,000 credits, just for being in a combat zone. Then came the administrative fee for the Reality engine hard reset, another 1.2 million. But the true insult was the convenience fee for not venting our atmosphere into the void, which added another 750,000 credits to the total. As I scrolled further, the numbers became astronomical. Humanity had backdated the licensing for Gravity 2.0 over the last 300 years, totaling 4 billion credits. There was an 18 billion credit fine for the unauthorized use of linear time in our occupied sectors. But the most absurd charge was the intellectual property royalty for explosions. Apparently, the specific frequency of orange and yellow fire our ships produce was patented by a place called Hollywood in the 20th century. Every time we won a battle, we owed them money for the visual effects. The total was so massive that the holographic projector began to smoke. It represented 3/4 of the entire hegemony's treasury. Before I could even protest, the bridge lights flickered, and that insufferable paperclip icon, Clippy, popped up in the corner of the screen. In his squeaky, maddening voice, he asked if I was trying to commit tax evasion. He offered to help me find a tax haven, or alternatively, initiate a total foreclosure protocol that would turn my entire fleet into a collection of very large, very slow-moving vending machines. I looked out at my 10,000 dreadnoughts, the terror of the stars, now one click away from being converted into soda dispensers. I slumped back into my throne and ordered the acolyte to pay the bill. All of it. "There will be no more invasions," I said quietly, watching the payment successful notification flash on the screen. We couldn't afford to go to war anymore. Every time we fired a laser, a human accountant got a commission. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy with soldiers. They had turned existence itself into a subscription service. And we were just the premium users who couldn't figure out how to cancel the trial. I looked at the toaster app icon blinking on my console and pressed it. A small slot opened in the side of my command throne, and 2 perfectly browned slices of bread popped out. I took a bite. It was delicious. I told the acolyte to message the High Council. The Vorthrax hegemony was retiring from the conquest business. We were going to open a bakery. It was the only way we would ever make enough money to keep the gravity turned on tomorrow morning. 3 months had passed since the incident in the Aurelian Nebula, and the transformation of the Vorthrax hegemony was nearly complete. My flagship, once the terrifying Worldcracker, had been decommissioned and renamed the Golden Crust. The massive obsidian hull was no longer polished to a predatory sheen. Instead, it was painted a soft, inviting pastel yellow that the Human Color Coordination Manual described as warm sourdough. The primary weapon banks, which once housed the Omega Pulse cannons, had been gutted and replaced with a series of high-capacity industrial convection ovens powered by the ship's star core. I stood on the bridge, which now smelled less like ozone and more like cinnamon and yeast. My chief tech acolyte was no longer wearing his ceremonial robes of destruction. Instead, he wore a white apron and a tall, pleated hat that he claimed was the traditional uniform of a master pastry general. He was currently arguing with the ship's navigation computer, which was still struggling to adapt to its new role. Every time we tried to set a course for a new delivery route, the AI, now officially renamed BakeBot 3000, would suggest adding more sugar to the fuel injectors. "Sire, the first batch of Imperial baguettes is cooling," the acolyte reported, his crystalline face glowing with a strangely wholesome pride. "The toaster app in the left engine has been synchronized with the main conveyor. We are currently producing 12,000 units of bread per solar hour. At this rate, we will be able to pay off the interest on our existence tax by the end of the next century." I looked out at the view screen. We weren't scanning for enemy fleets or weakness in planetary shields. We were looking for customers. But just as I was about to take a bite of a freshly baked croissant, a high-priority alert flashed on the screen. My 4 eyes narrowed in instinctive dread. It wasn't the Aurelians. It wasn't even Svitlana from tech support. A small silver shuttle docked with our primary bay. It bore no weapons, but the logo on its side sent a chill through my hearts. The Intergalactic Bureau of Sanitation and Culinary Standards. 10 minutes later, the bridge doors hissed open. A human man stepped out. He was older, wearing a gray suit and carrying a physical, paper-based clipboard, a technology so primitive it was terrifying. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at the star core. He walked straight to the nearest ventilation duct, wiped it with a white cloth, and looked at the smudge with a frown that could have withered a nebula. "Hi, Overlord Varlak?" the man asked, his voice sounding like dry parchment. "I'm Inspector Henderson. I'm here for your pre-operational health and safety audit. I received your application for a Class 7 Galactic food service license." "Inspector," I said, trying to sound welcoming while my 4 hands clenched in anxiety. "Welcome to the Golden Crust. As you can see, we have converted our war dreadnought into a temple of baking. We follow all the protocols Svitlana mentioned on the support line." Henderson didn't smile. He started walking through the bridge, tapping on the obsidian consoles. "I see you're using a star core for the ovens. Is that core lead-shielded to prevent gamma-ray seasoning?" Section 9, Paragraph 4 of the Health Code clearly states that subatomic particles are not an approved flavor enhancer. "It is shielded," I insisted, following him as he marched toward the engine room. "And we have sanitized every corridor with industrial-strength plasma cleaners." "Plasma leaves a metallic aftertaste," Henderson muttered, scribbling something on his clipboard. "And what about this BakeBot AI? Does it have a valid food handler's certificate? I've seen its logs. It tried to use a tactical tractor beam to knead the dough. That's a clear violation of the Nonviolent Food Processing Act of 2402. I felt the violet hue of rage creeping back into my skin, but I suppressed it. I remembered the bill. I remembered the gravity being turned off. We will recalibrate the bot, Inspector." We reached the primary oven chamber, the former Omega Pulse chamber. Henderson looked at the massive glowing aperture. "You're firing the bread directly into a focused beam of pure energy to get the crust that specific shade of brown?" "It is very efficient," the acolyte chirped, trying to be helpful. "It's a kinetic hazard," Henderson sighed. "If there's a power surge, you'll accidentally launch a loaf of bread through a nearby moon at relativistic speeds. Do you have a permit for hypervelocity baked goods?" "A permit for bread bullets?" I stammered. "Exactly, and don't even get me started on your staff," he said, pointing at my elite guards who were currently wearing hairnets over their combat helmets. "Are they washing all 4 of their hands for 20 seconds between every shift change? My sensors indicate they've only been washing the primary pair. That's a 50,000 credit fine per hand, per hour." I slumped against the obsidian wall. It was happening again. The humans hadn't stopped at tech support and accounting. They had a department for everything. They had turned the very act of making a sandwich into a strategic minefield of regulations and fees. "Look, Varlak," Henderson said, finally looking me in the eye, "you've got a nice ship. The bread actually smells decent. But you're thinking like a conqueror. You think you can just turn a weapon into a bakery and call it a day. But in the human world, the kitchen is the most dangerous battlefield there is. You need zoning permits, fire suppression systems that don't involve venting the room into a vacuum, and you definitely need to stop calling your sourdough the destroyer of hunger." "Why?" I asked, defeated. "Trademark infringement. There's a bakery on Mars called the Hunger Destroyer. They'll sue you for every crust you own." Henderson handed me a thick stack of yellow papers. "Fix these 3,000 violations, pay the inspection fee, and I'll come back in 6 months. Till then, the Golden Crust is grounded. You are officially in economic stasis." As the inspector walked back to his shuttle, Clippy the Galactic paperclip popped up on my HUD one last time. "It looks like you're trying to run an illegal food establishment," the icon chirped. "Would you like help drafting a bribe, or should I start the liquidation process?" I didn't answer. I just took a piece of the Imperial baguette and chewed it slowly. It was perfect. It was the best thing I had ever created in 10,000 years of life. And as I looked at the 3,000 violations, I realized that Svitlana was right. We were just tenants in a universe where the humans held the lease, the law, and the recipes. "Acolyte," I said, my voice heavy with a new kind of resolve. "Yes, Master Pastry General? Start washing all 4 of your hands. We have work to do. And call Svitlana back. We're going to need the business and regulatory expansion pack for the Reality engine. I think it's time we finally read the terms and conditions." The flute music started playing again, but this time I found myself humming along. If you can't beat the humans and you can't pay them off, the only thing left to do is make sure your bread is up to code. Several weeks had passed since the inspector's visit, and I, Overlord Varlak, did what no living being in this galaxy had done for the last 5 million years. I decided to actually read the terms and conditions of universe usage. To accomplish this, I had to dedicate an entire separate server block on the ship, because the volume of text was so immense it nearly caused a gravitational collapse in my library. My tech acolyte stood nearby with a fire extinguisher while I scrolled through holographic pages flying past my eyes at the speed of light. We passed sections on the prohibition of creating black holes in home environments, star parking regulations, and a long list of why antimatter should never be used for washing dishes. And there, somewhere on the 9 millionth page at the very bottom, printed in a font so tiny it could only be seen with an electron microscope, I found a section titled Administrative Privileges. "Acolyte, look at this," I whispered, my 4 eyes widening in realization. The text clearly stated, "This universe is a beta version created to test the concepts of chaos and irony. The developers, humanity, reserve the right to completely ignore the laws of physics whenever necessary for comedic effect, or in the event that one of the administrators is running late for lunch." "You mean?" The acolyte trembled. "They didn't just write the software, they are the moderators here?" I looked again at my fresh baguette, then at the screen where Clippy, that little metal monster, winked at me from the corner of the monitor. Now I understood why Svitlana was so tired. She wasn't just working in support. Every day she made sure that billions of dreaded conquerors like me didn't break this fragile world with our clumsy games of war. I closed the document and felt a strange sense of calm. Being a dreaded tyrant in a world where the rules of the game were written by tired people with a sense of humor was a losing strategy from the start. But being the best baker in the galaxy with a direct phone line to Svitlana, that was real power. I bit into the crust of the bread, which crunched so perfectly it was probably also patented somewhere deep in Earth's legal archives. "Acolyte, shut down the servers," I ordered, "and bring the powdered sugar. If we're already living in this beta version, we might as well make it sweeter." Somewhere in the void of space on the distant planet Earth, Svitlana probably heard that giant file close and allowed herself to smile for the first time all day, right before answering the next call from yet another emperor who had accidentally deleted his planet again.